Last September, AIA San Francisco awarded its professional category in its 2021 Future Classroom competition to a 5-person team from Berliner Architects, which was selected for its Learning Everywhere idea that features a mobile strategy for education at school, home, on field trips, and in transit. Here to discuss that concept is Richard Berliner, principal at the Culver City, California-based firm. Richard, welcome.
Hey, welcome, John. Thank you.
Okay. Richard, your team describes learning everywhere as, and I'm quoting here, a system of spaces, movement, and scheduling. Tell our audience about your concept and what pedagogic and health concerns it addresses.
Well, it was a very interesting time. We've been dealing with our education clients, mainly K through 12 clients for the last, I guess, it was 16 months. And a lot of the focus was on issues related to COVID. And there are specific issues related to COVID, but they're really in the context of a lot of other change that's happening in school design and school pedagogies. And the two really kind of came together in a great way in our response to the competition brief as far as creating a classroom of the future and what that really looked like. So, there were elements that in the context of COVID, we're really dealing with issues of safety. The schools primarily in late summer was in the middle of Delta, the rise of Delta, and it all gone back to remote learning. And issues of, remote learning, hybrid learning is certainly important. A lot of schools that we're working with were organizing their students into pods or cohorts that would allow them to limit, if there was infection, they were able to limit to that cohort. And also other ideas that we've been working with over the years, ideas of scheduling and how students move, time, flexibility in terms of scheduling. And the idea from our team came out, the idea of the magic school bus, which, a school bus kind of is the perfect size of a cohort, or the cohorts that the pods that we work with are typically 20 to 25 students. And the thought of getting kids out of their house, but not at school, within their pod, and the idea of traveling around the city, this whole idea of the TV show, The Magic School Bus, where kids get on the bus and magical things happen. And it was a very positive, kind of uplifting idea when things were really pretty tough, as far as kids either being home or in very limited circumstances. And it sort of created a sense of freedom within the context of COVID, that you can maybe address it in new ways.
There's been a lot of ideas that the AEC community has put out about project-based learning. How is your concept different, and what enables it? Maybe you can talk a little bit more in more detail about your pod structure and the magic bus concept of the component of it.
Yeah, so a lot of our projects are focused around project-based learning, where you're integrating multiple subjects into a project, so you call upon, math skills and writing skills and production skills, and it's all integrated into a project. The Magic School Bus draws on that thinking of getting kids out of the classroom per se, and taking them to places. I mean, we used LA, we're in LA, and we used LA, which has these just bountiful opportunities all around the city, from the beach to the mountains to museums to galleries, and sort of endless the possibilities. And it kind of goes along with the idea of project-based learning, where you're getting the kids out of the traditional classroom environment, where it's much more hands-on environment, where they can learn by doing. And the other exciting part about that is, kids learn in different ways. So getting kids out of the room where it's basically a lecture-based environment, get them to learn by, doing things with their hands, seeing, hearing, really engaging in activities, where for some kids who aren't great at learning by just taking in a teacher lecturing at them, they have the opportunity to learn in different ways. So, the Magic School Bus of 24 kids. That was our pod size. So they would come to your house, they pick you up, kind of save the issues of parents taking their kids to school on a autonomous bus, which would be solar powered. This was an ideas competition, so
Right.
lots of ideas mashed together. But we tried to do it as a continuum of ideas where the magic school bus would pick you up. And then the scheduling was really critical. Some days you would go on your field trip to the beach or to a museum, and there'd be a facility there to facilitate learning activities. But sometimes you would go to what we call the Central Park School. And that was kind of reinventing the idea of what a school is, with ideas of outdoor learning and biophilia, and really kind of immersing kids in a more natural landscape, and only creating the indoor spaces that were essential. I think we have a fair amount of flexibility here in Los Angeles to use the outdoors if they're designed correctly for learning, a lot more than many other parts of the country. So there's an opportunity to reduce the amount of enclosed, air-conditioned, heated spaces, and really have kids out in nature. So it's those three pieces: the magic school bus, the adjustment of time and schedule, and by using the resources of the host city, it reduces, I guess it gives you the opportunity to optimize the use of the school. Like, the kids aren't just at school all day and then they go home. So you can use, like, the classroom time is more consistently used, rather than 20% of the time. Maybe the classrooms use 50 or 60%. And I think all these things kind of lead into ideas about sustainability, to optimize the schools that we build, integrate them, make them as energy efficient and part of the natural environment, and use them as intensively as possible, both for the students and also for the surrounding community. The idea is that these schools would be open to the neighborhood when school was out. Certainly in a lot of the neighborhoods in LA, which are very park poor, the school campuses often provide more open space than anywhere else, and to make that accessible to the community is a great asset.
Richard, getting back to the scheduling part of it, I'm assuming that the scheduling would be different for each student in some respects. So how can how do you envision a degree of continuity involved in during a week or during a month, or even where that student happens to be at a given moment?
Right. Yeah. I mean, anyone who runs a school knows scheduling is one of the most complicated things to do, to get the students and the teachers and the facilities all aligned. The ideas about scheduling really come from some of our work on a project called Hybrid High School, where it was an underserved community. And these are high school students who have a lot of family responsibilities, and often they're working. And it's about building a degree of flexibility into a personalized schedule for each student. So rather than having to be at school 5 days a week from 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock, the scheduling, it's much more complicated, sophisticated scheduling, but it gives the student flexibility to have a after school job, or be able to go to help a sibling or their parents, because these are kids that have these obligations, and you don't want them missing school. So the idea of the scheduling is to build it into their personal schedule. For younger kids, obviously they don't have part-time jobs, and they're hopefully not taking care of family members, but the flexibility of scheduling is where they are, their cohort, their pod, where they are that day with their teacher. So like I said, some days they would just go to a site around the city, have specialized project-based lessons about the beach or about the ocean, and other days they would go to the Central Park School, and to be able to have that flexibility. So if they're not in their classroom that day, that another pod is using that same classroom.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it increases optimizes the use of the facility. I mean, because you look at schools, and for the most part, they're not very highly utilized. I mean, at the most, 5 days a week, they're in there, 5 hours a day. And this is an
Right.
opportunity to really optimize the use of the facility.
Mhm.
In the thought of reducing costs, but also in sustainability. I mean, the less we build, the more sustainable it is. And the more, more flexible the use of the space is, the more sustainable it is.
What sustainable components did you build into the competition idea? In terms of, I was looking at your website and it showed one graphic about sustainability in terms of airflow and stuff like that. But I'm just wondering if you could
Right.
elaborate on that a little bit for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was ideas, but we kind of included ideas about construction using wood construction, heavy timber construction,
Uh-huh.
things that have a lower carbon footprint, natural ventilation, solar panels, the orientation of the building. Again, trying to take as much advantage of our climate as possible, but it's as everywhere else, it's getting hotter in LA, and we have to make sure we provide plenty of shade, even when you're outside. It's really important if you are in an outdoor classroom that it's fully shaded and has good ventilation. But it's sort of these layers of ideas of sustainability, of optimizing the use of the building, minimizing the size and complexity of the building. I mean, that's really part of our thinking about it,
Huh.
making it as simple and economical as possible.
Mhm. And schools are some of the most expensive typologies out there right now, so that would be appreciated by a lot of school boards.
Yeah, it's a challenge though, and I know we talked about charter schools. Many of our clients are charter schools that aren't big school boards with big budgets, so we're often challenged
Mm.
with delivering the best learning environment at the lowest possible cost. And I think outside of like big school districts, there is a degree of flexibility about what defines a good classroom. I mean, there's still really high quality, but there's more flexibility as far as standards and that kind of thing. And often charter schools, entrepreneurs that are starting the schools are more accepting of ideas about different types of construction. Certainly everything is code compliant and life safety compliant and all that. But there's other ways to, many ways to skin a cat, and really focusing on delivering the best spaces for learning per dollar. I mean,
Mhm.
that's really the goal.
Richard, since winning the award, does your firm plan to pitch this to anybody? I mean, is it an idea that you think is ripe for experimentation?
We are in the middle. We just finished a project call for Heart of Los Angeles, where we did a building for them using recycled shipping containers. So that was really their hope to do the most sustainable building possible. And it was a very successful building. Having the classrooms and indoor and outdoor spaces, indoor and outdoor, so it's partly indoors, partly outdoors. And so I've just started pitching this idea. This just happened, I don't know, a month ago that we won this award. But they're looking at replicating their model, and it's around the city of LA. And there's a lot of talk about that. Instead of, an idea of very large centralized facilities, that you have multiple smaller facilities spread throughout the city, so they're more accessible to people. You don't have to drive all the way across town to get to the museum or, go to a concert. That there's multiple neighborhood centers that have well, certainly schools would be throughout, but a concert space or a performance space. And that's what Heart of Los Angeles focuses on performance spaces and teaching performing and visual arts to children in their community. So yes, we are trying to pitch it, and I'm excited about it. And again, it's a very ideas-based competition, so there's a lot of ideas rolled into that, and so we're trying to pick out the ones that are appropriate for their particular use.
Mhm. The one impediment might be finding a bus driver right now.
Yeah, I know there's a big shortage of bus drivers, but our bus is autonomous. But that was the big discussion. If as a parent, would you be willing to put your child on an autonomous bus without a bus driver? But we were still hoping to have a bus driver on in our project. We decided that it's better if there's an adult on the bus with the kids.
Yeah.
So,
Richard, thanks for talking to me about this. This is really a fascinating idea. I mean, and we'll see what happens with it.
yeah, thank you. Thanks, John.
Yeah. And this is John Caulfield from Building Design and Construction. Thanks for joining us.